In my world, risk had a price. At sea, it asks for blood. I made time pay interest. Each morning, I bought it cheap and sold it dear. Seconds were spreads, minutes, premiums, hours, equity. I never lost money on time. I made other people pay for the late fees. Distressed debt, they called it. I called it the harvest. You buy what people can't carry any longer. You sell what they can't live without. I never broke a ship. I broke balance sheets. The ocean doesn't file for Chapter 11. It takes what you throw at it and sends back salt. 12 seconds of my daughter's voice. Dad, Sunday, no phone. Just us. I archived it the way you archive a headline that's already priced in. Miami for 2 days. A last decision on a file that could save a bank or sink a town. North Shore shipyards. 3,000 jobs if I blinked. 0 if I didn't. Mercy doesn't have a ticker. Insurance calls it an emergency line. I called it optionality. Having options is how you never apologize. The compass twitched. I didn't. Time behaves. Till it doesn't. I've always believed panic was a currency, and I refused to pay. The cabin pressure fell. I counted. 1, 2, 3. My hands chose the mask before my mind did. The pilot's voice never reached me. Maybe it existed, maybe not. A man who trusts numbers keeps moving when words fail. People imagine chaos is loud. Sometimes it is a polite thief. It knocks, it enters, it tidies the room of you. Cold, salt, silence. I came up with a raft and without a plan. That was new. Markets and oceans reward the same ritual, inventory. What you have, what you owe, what you're pretending you can postpone. The phone was Schrodinger's rescue. On or off, it created a future to argue with. I had the kind of things that help you win rooms, not seas. Rule 1, stop moving wrong. Drift with intent. Wealth is how warm you are when you stop pretending. Dawn is the market open. It reveals who bought the rumor and who owns the risk. Water wasn't a commodity. It was a vote. Every sip says who I decided to be tomorrow. The body spends itself like an undisciplined trader. You teach it or it teaches you. Evaporation is a patient trade. Heat becomes vapor. Vapor becomes a promise if you give it shade and shape. I'd spent a career commanding time. Here I would borrow it at interest. Every decision had a shadow. If I burned paper for warmth, I lost a sail. If I made a sail, I lost a blanket. The sea punishes overfitting. Trend following. If the current wants east, let it. Fighting a trend out here is how you go from stupid to dead. The watch said I still lived inside a schedule. The sun laughed. Hope is expensive if you buy it too early. Claire used to say I had 2 clocks. One for markets, one for people, and I said only one of them. She wasn't wrong. We could never agree on when to arrive at us.
You don't measure love with alarms, James.
I tried. It rang during dinner anyway. I bought the front row. I sold the moment. A man of resources has to calibrate his shame. I tied line to a bent paperclip, masked the hook with a strip of my shirt, and fished like I knew what it meant to earn lunch with silence. I learned the ocean respects deposits. Over-leverage, again. There are lines you swear you'll never cross. Then you meet thirst and understand those lines were drawn in chalk. The body says thank you in smaller words than you expect. Silence has weight. It presses the ribs together, so the heart has to pulse narrower to slip through. Light came where it didn't belong, staining the water with tiny galaxies. Every movement of the raft wrote a line of cold fire. I imagined Ava, small hands trailing behind a boat, laughing at the glitter. I could almost hear it. I almost pressed play. I had 12 seconds of a child insisting on Sunday. I had never given Sunday any respect. I had given it to futures that expired at Friday close. The wind wanted to teach me a language I had mocked. The market has corrections. The sea has proof. In office storms, you pasture. Out here, you minimize your profile and wait for the doctrine to pass. God hands water like dividends, irregular then everything. I promised myself one flare. Not for loneliness, for probability. When it was over, the raft had 1,000 new creases. So did I. The difference between thirst and greed is 3 swallows. Time is what we make, the engraving said. I had spent half my life making it a weapon. The other half a leash. The sea asked me what else it could be. The watch sacrificed itself in percent. The way I used people. Yield. In markets almost counts if you sell it well. Out here almost is still empty. Save the battery. Save the pretense you control the terms. North Shore was a calculus problem. Debt stacked upon calendar dates. A town inside an equation. My team built models that tidied people into rows we could sum or cut. We can secure assets more efficiently if we don't promise ghosts, I said. I meant jobs. My father lost a small store on a street that has since forgotten him. I swore I would never lose a minute to miscalculation. I just didn't notice I was losing the hours that mattered. The human eye is a desperate investor. It sees signals where there are clouds. A flare now would be a confession, that I needed to be seen more than I needed to live later. I turned on the phone. Hope again bought too early. As I powered down, I named the horizon patience and decided to hold. Loss realized. Sacrifice is just capital redeployed. The calendar said Sunday, if the watch and the sky weren't lying. The only day my daughter had ever asked me to respect. The one I treated like a commodity I could short without consequence. I played it in my head. Ava, 12 seconds. Hey, Dad. Sunday, no phone, okay? Just us. I made a list. She always made lists. She learned that from me. She used it to call me home. I used mine to leave. If I lived, I would give her a Sunday. Not promised. Delivered. Wind is a partner, if you stop treating it like an adversary. I used the story of a town to move a small raft 2 degrees closer to tomorrow. I owed them that. I owed someone everything. A good trade is one you can survive being wrong about. I had preserved a single silver pouch like a saint's bone. I decided not to drink it. I decided to give it to the man who would wake up if I was found today. I could be generous to him.
Help me!
There are times you give to your future self, and times you stop making him clean up your mess. The clock had done enough. Time is what we make. Today I made it into a hook, a glint, a reason. Birds are evidence. Land is a rumor until birds corroborate it. Rescue is a negotiation. You have to price your signal correctly. 1 to announce. 1 to correct. 1 to beg. Announced. Corrected. Begging never felt like this. It felt like living. Please, I have seen markets pivot. I have never loved a pivot more. The first floor under me that didn't move. I hadn't realized how much I missed floors. Three swallows. The difference remains. James, just the one I could carry. I turned on the phone. The battery had one last square. I didn't call a board. I didn't call a broker. I played the only thing that had been right all week. I counted every second. Not to price them, but to feel them resist being counted. Debt, finally, that I could name without hiding it in a spreadsheet. They wanted a statement. I gave them the only sentence I could hold without lying. I was lucky. The watch went to a drawer. I used its parts that saved me. I let the rest become a story I don't have to wear. There are hugs that settle accounts. Just the part I could carry. Sunday plan, I said. Her eyes widened like I'd spoken a password. She talked fast. Pancakes, a park, a thrift store for a jacket she wanted because it looked like adventure. No phones. Every week I discovered how many things you can do with an hour when it isn't an investment product. I couldn't resurrect a town. I could choose not to take what air was left. We drafted a transition fund. We scaled returns down and futures up. It wasn't charity. It was an admission that not every line belongs to me. When I leave a room now, I try to leave it breathing. I once believed uncertainty was a failure of design. At sea, I learned it is the design. You don't hedge the ocean. You let it teach you a slower math. Time is what we make, the engraving said. I used to think that meant I could bend it. Now I hear it differently. We make time by where we place our attention. We make it for the things that would die without it. I don't know how many days I have left. But I know which ones I'll count. Sundays and the ordinary. Tuesdays that remember how to breathe. In my world, risk had a price. At sea, it asked for blood. I paid with an old version of myself. The return was not money. It was time I couldn't buy, only make.